Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom. Tom, how's it going?
Well, Tony, as we learned on the last show, that doesn't matter at all. What all that matters in Tony Gerdeman's world is how Tony Gerdeman is doing. So, Tony, how's it going?
It was going just fine until you power paused me, Tom, and now it's not going so great. But you did make me forget about my sciatica. Just acting up. So,
sounds like someone needs a backiotomy.
Doctor said I need a backiotomy. We're not going to restart the show, Tom. We're just going to move forward. This is the defensive edition of the Stock Up for the Buckeyes, and I think there are a number of ways that we can go with this. But, Tom, I let you go first last time, and I regretted doing so. I still regret doing so. I would never allow this to happen again. I'm going to go first, and I'm going to go with a position of some importance. Kayden McDonald, nose tackle, who has been getting talked up by the Ohio State offensive players, the defensive players, and we will talk with Larry Johnson this week. I'm guessing he's going to say some positive things about Kayden McDonald at nose tackle for the Buckeyes, and it's a position that is obviously very important. The defensive line, they need to be able to stop the run, and they've got a guy there that we've seen some from, but we have not seen him be a starter and command the starter snaps, play 40, 50 snaps a game in the biggest games. That's where he's really going to be tested, and that's right out of the gate. I don't think they're not going to play a nose tackle 50 snaps in the August 30th heat at noon, from noon to 3. So that's going to be somewhat of a test, but I think the bigger test is going to be 50 snaps against Michigan in November, against the run, being tested and smashed constantly. But right now, I think they feel pretty good, and I think a lot of that is because of what he's done in camp. And yes, there are concerns about the defensive line, the interior as a whole. But right now, I think they feel best about Kayden McDonald.
Well, the fact that they feel good about Kayden McDonald at all right now is a pretty good indication that things are really good with Kayden McDonald, because Edric Houston has been limited. So you haven't had the guy who was expected to be next to Kayden McDonald sort of chewing up blocks during the course of fall camp. So Kayden McDonald, if anything, has probably been the focus for the offensive line, and the interior of the Ohio State offensive line is pretty darn good. I think you have everyone back from the interior of the offensive line that won the national championship last year. So the interior of the offensive line was pretty darn good last year. So this is not maybe he just looks good because the offensive line is terrible. No, you've seen the offensive line. The offensive line literally won the national championship last year, the guys he would be going up against. So yeah, I look at that, and just the frequency with which you're hearing from people about him, that's a pretty good indication to me that things are going well. He was not a concern going in. He was not a concern going into the spring. He was not a concern going out of the spring. But he also sounds like, from what everyone's saying and the little bit that we got to see during camp, he feels like someone who has kind of taken that next logical step from guy who was a rotational player, guy who was out there for the goal line stand against Penn State and stuff like that. He has played some really important snaps for Ohio State in his career, and now feels like he's someone who's sort of seizing, the most of the opportunity that he's got in front of him now. I'm going to stick on the defensive line, Tony, and I'm going to go with Kenyatta Jackson, because Kenyatta Jackson is someone who my expectation was already pretty darn high for Kenyatta Jackson coming out of last year. He felt all year, especially at the end of the season, just looked at when he was getting snaps, where he was getting snaps, and he was playing at times and playing in ways that were not in line with the stats he was producing. It was just, you could tell, you can get told stuff, we think this guy's great. We think this guy's amazing. And then it's like, well, why aren't you playing him like you think he's amazing? It's like, well, mumble, voice trails off. Like, he was someone who you saw out there at times and in roles that were, they believe this guy is legit and is going to be the next really solid defensive end at Ohio State after JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer leave. And everything we've heard has been very much in line with that, taking on a leadership role. He's another guy who would not have necessarily thought captain. And we talked about this with Austin Siereveld on the last show.
Mm-hmm.
He wouldn't have necessarily gone into spring saying, just sew the C on his jersey right now. But he's someone who, with what we've heard, that would not be a surprise if he was part of that group. And, he's also seems like he's kind of made the most of those reps on the field as well. And this is not a situation with Kayden McDonald where, boy, who are the guys behind him? He's going to be number one, and there's not even a question who's behind him. There's plenty of depth at the defensive end position. I think you could list Caden Curry in this group if you wanted to, and you got Bo Atkinson, and they have guys off the edge. CJ Hicks could be in this conversation potentially. They have guys, but Kenyatta Jackson feels like he is kind of number one with a bullet right now coming off that edge. That to me makes him a pretty easy inclusion in this group.
He's one of those guys who's talked about as if he was a known quantity by everybody who's talking about him. And they get to see him every day. We don't. So they're coming from a vantage point of knowledge. We're coming from a vantage point of, you have 6 career tackles for loss and 3 career sacks. Why should we believe? But again, this is one of those things where just listen to what the people say and listen to what they don't say. There's no there's no concern. There's no if he can do this or this, we need him to do this. It's just understood that no, he's right where we need him and he's going to do fine. In terms of what to expect, don't expect Chase Young. But again, Tom, I was just looking while you were talking. Chase Young, when he had all of those sacks, 16 and a half, I think in 2019, he did that he played 12 games, but he only had sacks in 9 games, like at least a half of a sack in 9 games. Last year, JT Tuimoloau had at least a half of a sack in 11 games, which is pretty impressive. And I'm not, I was wondering, could Kenyatta Jackson have a season like JT Tuimoloau last year, where I think he had 11 and a half sacks? Again, anytime you start talking double digits, that's a lot. But I do remember when we were talking about Chase Young in 2018, when he said, coming after the 2017 season, when he was talking about, I want 10 sacks next year, and he went and got it. It's like, I wonder what Kenyatta Jackson's target is this year, and we will talk to him on Wednesday, and Thursday,
I think,
and he will certainly be asked. I don't know that he will tell us, but the stock is very, very high on Kenyatta Jackson right now. 6'6", 265. Looks like you want your defensive ends to look, and he looks like he could add more, and that's crazy.
Yeah.
So
go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, I'm good.
You're next. So
I know. I thought you were going to add something on, and I didn't want to cut you off. Now I will cut you off, Tom. Please stop. I'm going to go with Jermaine Matthews, who I put him on this list. One, because he wasn't a starter last year. This is another guy. There's no concern about him, but we've seen more of him than I think we have Kenyatta Jackson. We've seen him in play more, make more plays, and yes, they are different positions. I understand that. But I think what really did me in was on Monday, talking with Ryan Day, I asked him about just couching the question, like, Jermaine Matthews worked his way into the rotation last year. Do you foresee something like that happening at safety or corner this year? And he's like, well, first let me talk to you about Jermaine. And he said, I just see so much growth in Jermaine in terms of maturity. He's a very emotional player, but he's learned to keep those emotions in check, which is pretty good for Jermaine, if anybody knows him. He's learned to keep those emotions in check, and now he's playing with emotion. He's not letting it play with him. He's getting more and more mature, more and more experienced every day, and he's become a great teammate. He builds up guys around him, and if he sees something, he calls it out. I got a lot of respect for the way he does that. He doesn't just let it go. He's become one of our leaders, maybe a little bit unexpectedly, but he leads with his heart. He loves his teammates. He loves Ohio State. He loves the state of Ohio. He's fun to be around every day. He is one of those energy givers that we talk about. And I think the cornerbacks are in very good hands. And you say they both, Davis Nigbanos and Jermaine Matthews, got to watch Denzel Burke be a leader for the room. And now I've seen both of those guys be leaders, and I'm not trying to I could put Davis and Nick Benosin here as well. But right now I'm just talking about Jermaine Matthews, and everything he's done has been basically part of the plan to get to where he is right now. And I would expect that his plan is for this to be his last year. But if it's not, he's just going to continue to attack every single day and not let it get to him.
Well, he's someone who feels like he's sort of on not quite the Jeff Okudah path, but that kind of trajectory where by the end of the freshman year, true freshman year, at a time when you don't normally see corners on decent Ohio State teams, Ohio State teams with a good defense, you don't normally see true freshmen out there in spots of some consequence. Denzel Burke was out there at the start of the 2021 season. I think that said more about the other guys in that corner room than it did. Denzel Burke was a fantastic, true freshman corner that year, but that may have said more about the other guys in that room than it did about Burke himself. For Matthews, he's someone who has just had that very logical progression of, he's out there a little earlier than you might have expected to see him, to, okay, he's definitely in the 2 deep at the start of last year, and then he's earning his way into a bigger role on a team that won the national championship, that was loaded with veteran talent in that corner room. That was a moment where that said more about Jermaine Matthews than it did about the other guys in the room, that he's earning his way on the field with some of the other guys that they had in that room. And so now this is the very logical next step to, okay, and now you're the starter. And you go back through a lot of the first round corners at Ohio State over the last 10, 15 years. That's kind of been the progression for a lot of those guys. And some of them left after the 3rd year, some of them left after their 4th year, but he feels like he's very much on that path. And, we'll see how this year goes. But between him and Igbinosun, I think, you're not planning on doing a separate thing on Igbinosun, right? Did you have him on your list?
I do, actually.
Okay, well, I'll save my Davis and Igbinosun thoughts for later, because, I think you could very easily have him on this list as well. But corner's a spot where they've got the young guys, and Aaron Scott and Devin Sanchez have both been really good this fall. But man, I think that the starting corners, I think they're very happy with where they are right now with those guys. So, all right. So I will save my Davis and Igbinosun thoughts for later. Let's move on to the linebacker position. And boy, you could pick any of the either of the starting guys, and I think there are a lot of people who are probably saying he's going to say Arvell Reese. I'm going to say Peyton Pierce, because Peyton Pierce, man, it feels like he is ready to take a major step this year. He's not he's not starting this year, but the fact that it is like very clearly Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles are both ticketed for big years, I think, this year. But Peyton Pierce, they're talking about him like he's right there. They're talking about him in the group of 3 linebackers, where it's the other 2 guys who everyone is thinking of as, sure thing, star season guys. And then Peyton Pierce is also in that group. And it's like, no one's talking about Peyton Pierce that way, really, other than the coaches and other than the players on the team. So I think he's someone who is very, I think he's stock up this spring, stock up the summer, stock up fall camp. But I think he's also someone who is just probably going to, if you were going to buy, if Peyton Pierce stock was available on the Ohio State fan stock market, I think that would be a strong buy recommendation right now, because I think that is going to shoot up quite a bit this fall. Again, I'm not expecting him to start, but that says a lot more about the other linebackers than it does about him. He feels like he's going to be, when Sonny Styles turns pro after this year, we'll see what happens with Arvell Reese. Sonny Styles, this is his last year. It could be Arvell Reese's last year as well, but it feels like he's very much going to be just a step over. And then we're talking about him the same way we're talking about Jermaine Matthews this time next year.
Yeah, another guy that there just aren't any questions about. And James Laurinaitis says that he's one of the 3 starters. Just maybe consider it like 20 years ago, Bobby Carpenter, A.J. Hawk, and Anthony Schlegel. Those are your 3 starters. They weren't always on the field together, but those are your 3 guys. And any 3 of those guys, the good thing is they can play both spots. And they can, if there's a Sam, then that's right up Sonny Styles' alley to be that Sam guy that is also somewhat of a nickel or however you want to do it. So they can work those guys in any number of ways. And I'm with you. When you talk to the guys about what Peyton Pierce brings, it's like, he's downhill. And it's like, okay, is that apparently he's downhill in a good way? Like sometimes you can be downhill and out of control. There's no talk about he needs to slow down. It's like, we just wanted to see him get under control. It's like, no, he's the kind of guy that knows exactly where he's going to wreck and then wrecks exactly where he's like a stunt driver. It's like, look, we need you to drive under this semi and then clip the Ferrari. It's like, yeah, I got that. I can do that. I can dodge the semi and clip the Ferrari. You're fine. We one take, just watch this. And that's basically what he is. He's in control, but it looks like it's a little bit out of control. And the way people talk about him, again, it's similar to how they talked about Cody Simon last year. Like, yeah, don't worry about it. He's going to be fine as a starter. Tommy Eichenberg, 2-time All Big Ten guy. We're going to be okay. And I think that's, yes, Arvell Reese moves away from being the third linebacker to the starter now. Don't worry, they're going to be okay in that third linebacker spot. While we're talking about the linebackers, I'll go with Arvell Reese because the way we keep talking about these guys, one of the things about being stock up is just they were assumed that they were going to just step in and move up, and be well, and that's what's happening. And no games have been played yet, but the way these guys are being talked about, to hear the feedback about Arvell Reese, I know Bobby Carpenter mentioned it on his show in terms of the size of Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese. I saw this on Twitter. Like, they're similar to the way as big as like Joshua Perry was, but they move a lot better than Joshua Perry. And then Joshua Perry quote tweets it. It's like, I wasn't expecting to catch a stray, but they're not wrong. That sort of thing. And Joshua Perry ran track in high school. Like, he was a legit track athlete as well. But these guys and Arvell Reese being 6'4", almost 250 pounds, where it wasn't that long ago where that's too big. That's just too big to play linebacker. And now that they're throwing the ball more than ever, it's like, shouldn't it still be too big to play linebacker? And because that's what Andy Katzmeyer was. He was like, well, it's too big now. And with Arvell Reese, it apparently isn't too big. And the role isn't too big for him either. And he talks a really, really good game. He is very confident and very excited about what's going to happen this year.
Yeah, he's very confident and very excited about what's going to happen this year. And so is James Laurinaitis. And that's one of those things where, players, sometimes you can go, well, you haven't really had to do it. And Arvell Reese obviously played a ton of meaningful snaps last year. So this is not someone who's this totally unproven guy. This is the guy who was one of the top three and is, okay, everyone take one step to the left. And now you're one of the top two instead of the top three. But yeah, he's someone who, when your position coach is talking about you like that, again, these are coaches. There's never a shortage of hype around Ohio State football. This is not, these are not guys that Ohio State football coaches feel the desperate need to gas up. These are guys who, if anything, they're trying to tamp down the expectations a little bit, and you're still getting what you're getting out of James Laurinaitis and some of the defensive coaching staff. And yeah, that to me is pretty telling. I think Arvell Reese is a great pick here. I'm glad you took him because he absolutely should be in this list. I'm gonna slide one in here before we move on to the rest of the list, because I think we might be out now. Technically, if we were just doing 5, I think we're out. So and you still have to get to Davis and Igmanosin. I am just gonna slide Riley Pettyjohn's name in here, and Riley Pettyjohn is someone who, this is similar to the Nate Roberts conversation on the last show, where no one is saying he's going to win the starting job this year, but he's already lost his black stripe. And he was someone who, again, we talked about this on the last show. We've got a pretty good sense with who's going to lose their stripes at this point. He lost his stripe very early. He was picked very early in that draft. He was a second or third name picked in that draft. So this is not a huge shock, but this is someone who came in looking college ready, who has been, sort of shown to be physically college ready, to at the very least be a little bit of a special teams assassin for them potentially this year. And then you put him in, and he's the guy who late in the third quarter against Grambling has the hit that has everyone going, whoa, and you're gonna You're not going to see him in the second quarter against Texas on defense, and that's fine. Like you don't want that. You don't want a true freshman to be thrown into that kind of situation that early. But he's someone who you're going to see in the second halves of some of these other non-conference games. He's someone you're going to see on special teams, and he's someone who, it would not shock me if he was the third linebacker we were saying all the same stuff about next year when we, that we just said about Peyton Pierce. When we're doing this show in 12 months.
Yeah, we may be talking about a couple of third linebackers next year, depending on how things go. I wrote about Riley Pettyjohn in a notebook yesterday. Yesterday to me, whatever day it is today. And since I've since lost it, there it is. So this was talking to James Laurinaitis about Riley Pettyjohn. Said, obviously getting your black stripe off is a big deal, but Riley has shown a tremendous growth even from the spring. You saw the traits and stuff like that, but just mentally, I think he's studying better. I think he's starting to get a feel for how things are done at this level. He's had a really strong fall camp. Still some mental things he's got to improve on. He's young. You have to take that into consideration being a true freshman, but I expect to see Riley on the field in some form or fashion, whether special teams or whatever it is, week one. I would expect it to be special teams week one. After that, we can revisit this, but yeah, stock up for Riley Pettyjohn. And then I'll just finish up with Davis Nigbanos, and I've said this on the show before, just watching him firsthand be a leader of the defense to the young guys and never backing down from any of these receivers. And I know he's a senior. He's a 4-year starter at cornerback in major college football, true freshman at Ole Miss, and he's going to be a 3-year starter at Ohio State, which is rare enough. So it's like he's already been up here. But I know he gets knocked down by the fans in terms of his penalties. And it's, again, another one where we just keep hearing good things about him, keep seeing good things about him. I think it's okay to mention him as a guy who is stock up. And I think when we talk about the questions of this team, cornerback never comes up.
No, it doesn't. And he's someone who I don't know how much better he can get just in terms of overall play from last year, but from what we've seen this fall, I think the confidence is there where you maybe aren't going to see the clutching and the grabbing. And what I'm interested in is how many games does it take for Ohio State fans to, if he's not getting called, if he's not doing the clutching and the grabbing, how many games does it take Ohio State fans to adjust to no longer saying, well, here it comes. Every time the ball goes up on his side of it, here, reach for the flag now. Because I think you probably owe him a fresh start this year. Like, let's judge him on his merits this year rather than what was really kind of the beginning to middle of last season more than anything. Mm-hmm. I think the number of penalties he got called for tailed off a decent amount towards the end of the year, and I don't know that the perception of his game has caught up with that yet. But I would treat both him and yourself to a fresh start for him this year and judge him on his own merits. One other guy in the cornerback room who we probably should mention is Devin Sanchez, who also has lost his black stripe. I don't know how stock up that really is for him because the expectations were just ludicrous for him to begin with. But he is living up, I think, to some of the ludicrous expectations, which again, this is not, he's going to take over as the starting corner outside in week 2. Like, no, that's not what you're going to do as a true freshman on a defense that has a couple very, very good outside corners already. And, has probably some pretty decent players at nickel as well. But man, he looks like he's very much on that, all the stuff I said earlier about Jermaine Matthews and sort of the trajectory of the guys who are the future first round picks at corner. It's very early. Don't go crazy right now. But he certainly, I think that was sort of almost the expectation for him coming in. But we've seen a lot of times when it's not easy. That's not a truly linear path from 5-star corner signs to 5-star corner putting on an NFL team's hat, 3 Aprils later. That's, you haven't seen anything from him so far to suggest that he's not on that path. He has not had you're falling a little behind. There's a little bit of a slow start. He's been very solid this spring, very solid this summer, very solid in fall camp. Great player off the field, very, liked by his teammates, great family. I mean, the whole 9 yards that you would want out of a player. the expectations were ridiculous for him and probably a little unfair for him, but he is living up to those so far. And that, maybe that's not stock up for anyone else, but to me, it's like, all right, those are unfair expectations and you're living up to them. So therefore, all right, that's stock up to me.
It's not his fault. It's our fault that the stock isn't as up as it would be if we just allowed him to be a freshman with realistic expectations. But again, nothing we've seen or heard at this point lets us think that there's any delay in what he's going to become. But you come to Ohio State and it's going to be hard to get on the field as a true freshman. I think you'll see him in their points, but I don't think we can judge what we see by week one unless we see them out there week one. Then it's like, well,
yeah,
now all bets are off now. If you're playing a true freshman in that game in the second quarter, then it's like, okay, so this is serious. This is legit.
At that point, the stock has split, and it's right now he's the inflated IPO price that has continued to go up, and it's like, all right, well, maybe there are some solid fundamentals behind what was perhaps viewed as an inflated IPO price. Yeah, if he's playing second quarter against Texas, and I am not expecting that, but if he is thrown in that spot, then yeah, okay, the stock is going to split. So but buy quickly at that point.
So there you go. I want to thank you all for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit that thumbs up. And of course, a day or so ago, we gave you 5 guys with stock up on offense. There you go, 5 guys stock up on defense. If you've got some guys that we didn't mention, or you want to add on to the list that we gave you, go ahead and throw those in the comments on YouTube, and or where we're going to be talking about this as well on the Buckeye Huddle message board presented by Jeff Ruby's Columbus. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys later.